They don't fall apart. They don't spiral into regret. They do something far more unsettling. They begin the quiet work of erasing you from their emotional hard drive, not out of cruelty, but because permanence is the only language their nervous system understands as safe. When the door locks from the outside, when they lose control over whether you return, their psychology shifts into a mode most people never witness. They reconstruct the relationship as something that never truly existed. The avoidant begins a process of historical revision so thorough it borders on dissociation. Every intimate moment gets reframed as performance, every vulnerability reinterpreted as strategic exposure, every connection drained of its emotional weight. They don't remember the relationship as it was. They remember it as they needed it to be, to survive leaving it behind. The laughter becomes forced, the closeness becomes suffocating. The love becomes obligation. This isn't conscious manipulation of memory. It's their psyche protecting them from the unbearable truth that they had something real, and their own defense mechanisms destroyed it. By rewriting the narrative into something hollow, they give themselves permission to feel nothing about its ending. The relationship becomes a fever dream. They convinced themselves mattered more than it did. And your permanent absence becomes proof they were right to remain detached all along. Subscribe to explore the hidden psychology of attachment and emotional defense. They fixate on the flaws they tolerated as proof of incompatibility. Every small irritation, every minor difference, every moment of friction gets excavated and magnified until it becomes the entire relationship. The avoidant doesn't remember you as a whole person. They remember you as a collection of incompatibilities they were silently enduring. The way you communicated becomes evidence you were never meant to last. The way you needed reassurance becomes proof you were too demanding. The way you wanted closeness becomes confirmation that you wanted something they could never give. This hyper-focus on flaws serves a purpose. It transforms loss into inevitability. If the relationship was always doomed by fundamental incompatibility, then their avoidance wasn't the problem. The problem was the pairing itself. Your permanent departure stops being abandonment and becomes the natural conclusion of a mismatch they saw coming but tried to ignore. They don't have to face their own responsibility for the disconnection if they can convince themselves you were never compatible to begin with. They return to the self they inhabited before you existed. The avoidant performs an emotional factory reset. Routines you interrupted get reinstated. Interests you didn't share get resurrected. The version of themselves that existed in complete autonomy gets reactivated as though you never altered their trajectory. This isn't about moving on. It's about erasing the evidence that you ever moved them at all. They reconstruct the life they had before you with meticulous precision, as if your absence can be managed by simply rewinding to a point where you were never a variable. They don't seek new connection. They fortify old patterns. They return to friendships that never demanded vulnerability, hobbies that never required collaboration, routines that never accounted for another person's presence. The permanence of your departure doesn't inspire them to change. It confirms that change was the mistake. They become who they were before you. And in doing so, they eliminate the gap your absence created. When you leave forever, the avoidant doesn't chase the lost connection. They become the person for whom that connection never mattered enough to disrupt the self they've always needed to remain.